What is up, you gits, grots, and boys? It is time for Richie Rich from Let's Get Rollin' to review the specialist mobs. So in 8th edition, we got specialist detachments. In ninth edition, we got specialist mobs. So specialist mobs, how it works is that each detachment, you can pick one unit, and that unit can replace its clan culture and change it to a specialist mob. That's interesting because it allows more flexibility, and that means that if you take more detachments, you can take more specialist mobs. So we're gonna jump straight into this. First of all, I'm just gonna straight up review or go over the whatever the specialist mob is. Then I'm gonna talk about my thoughts on it, and then I'm gonna give it a ranking. I'm gonna go from D minus, which is the worst, and the grade that I saw most in high school, to a A plus, which is the best, and the grade that I saw least in high school. So let's get started with the specialist mobs. All right, first of all, we got the Pyromaniacs. So Pyromaniacs, you can use this on Burn Up Boys, Burn Up Bombers, Boom Deck of Snazwagons, Death Killer War Trike, Knob, or a War Boss. So with Pyromaniacs, what happens is that every time that it shoots with a flamethrower weapon, instead of you rolling d6 for the attacks, rather you can roll the d6. If it's less than 3, then it automatically becomes a 3. I crunched the math on this, so that means that on average, you're increasing the number of shots by actually only zero point 0.5. So you're increasing the number of attacks by zero point 0.5, which is not a lot, especially for something that's going to replace the clan culture. Now you have to think about what are the other benefits that I'm going to get rid of for Pyromaniacs. That being said, each flamethrower weapon is increased by zero point 0.5. So let's say you have um, 7 Burnas. Sorry, let's make it 10 Burnas to make it easier. 10 Burnas. You're increasing the average by zero point 0.5. That means, in essence, on average, you're getting 5 more attacks. The thing is, though, it's only averages, so this is just smoothing out variance, which is still good, especially in competitive play, given the fact that you want to eliminate as many variables as possible. But I don't think it's that strong enough to replace clan cultures, and I think you'd rather have the clan culture. So overall, I would give this a C. I think this is good on maybe a lot of Burna Boys if you're running a big mob of Burna Boys just to smooth out that variance. Probably don't want to run this on the Boom Deck of Snazwagons because you're going to have to run 3 in the unit to take full advantage. And then if you have 3 buggies, there's a chance that if one of them dies, that they'll run away. So that's a big no-no. Probably want to be running this on Burnas if you are running it. And you want to be using this very sparingly because I think the regular cultures outshine the Pyromaniacs. Alright, moving on to Boom Boys. So Boom Boys on Big Mechs, Blitzabombers, Def Copters, Mechs, Knobs, Tank Busters, the Wagon, and the War Boss. So Boom Boys gain the ability where each time the model shoots with a weapon that's blast, they improve the armor penetration by 1. That is not that great. So I did some number crunching. It's actually a bit better than Pyromaniacs because with this you're actually increasing the amount of wounds that are going through. So you're not just improving an average, you're actually improving the unit as a whole. That being said, I think for big mechs and possibly even mechs, you want to keep the clan culture. You're probably wanting it as giving it some extra gubbins and stuff like that. So you may want to give it specific clan traits, especially with the mechs and big mechs being able to fix vehicles. You don't want to replace its clan culture. So now they can't even fix their own vehicles. That's kind of messed up. Blitzabama, I really don't know about that one. I think it's too minuscule of a gain to be using your specialism to improve a Blitzabama. Defcopters maybe. Defcopters maybe because you do have a nice volume of fire. Tank Busters maybe as well. Actually, this might be useful on Tank Busters. So I'm thinking really you are gonna be using this on a Defcopter or Tank Busters to really maximize having that improved AP. Now, the thing with AP is that improving AP, going from 0 to 1, you're going to see the most gain in an AP improvement. Given that most of these blast weapons are already AP 2 or 3 on the units that are listed that you can put them on, you're going to see diminishing returns. Now, the best thing to put this on is copter rockets and tank buses or any kind of rocket unit with a rocket in general because with rockets, they're AP2, going from AP2 to AP3. Let me just look it up here. You are actually increasing the chance to wound by, I actually did the math hammer on this. So boom boys, you are going, if you, let's say you're shooting a bunch of termies that are 2 plus save, so going from AP2 to AP3, you're actually increasing by 33% your chance to wound, which actually is a decent amount. However, hear me out. Given that orc shooting is extremely unreliable, okay, 10 tank pluses on average is gonna lead to about 2 wounds of a Terminator. So that means that you are actually gonna increase the amount of wounds done by zero point 0.3 from going from AP2 to AP3. So that's not a lot. The fact that you can only also give it to one unit, you can't really max out on this. So I think this is Boom Boys is I think it's a C. So it's pretty much the same level of Pyromaniacs. It's a bit better. So you know what? Let's give this a C plus. I'm gonna say Boom Boys a C plus. All right, next up we got Fly Boys. Flyboys, you can use this on your airplanes. So you can use this on your Blitzabombers, your Burnabombers, Dakajet, Defcopters, or Wazbomb Blasterjet. So pretty much all your flyers. Interestingly enough, you can also use it on Defcopters. Pretty interesting. So each time a range attack targets a flyboy, if the attacker is more than 6 inches away, then the unit that's being hit has the benefit of light cover, which means +1 to the armor save. It's not bad. Given that there are going to be some cultures that may want to run like Daka Jets, maybe you want to run a Blitzabama, and they don't really benefit from the clan culture. Like let's say it's Snake Bites or Evil Sons or Goths, for example. They don't. Those flyers don't really benefit from those clan cultures. So you could easily give it the Flyboys and just make it a little bit more resistant to fire, which is definitely a plus. So for that reason, I think Flyboys will actually see here and there, and I'll give Flyboys a B plus. All right, Big Krumpaz. Now we get to the best named specialism in the game, Big Krumpaz. So Def Dreads, Gorkanauts, Mega Armor Knobs, Mega Armor Characters, or Morkanauts, they gain Big Krumpaz. So you get Crump in time. That alone makes this S tier, but we're gonna just pretend that we're ranking stuff on the actual game and not the coolness. So Crump in time, each time a big Crumpa model makes a melee attack, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. Man, Crump in time just makes me so happy. So Crump in time, you add 1 to the attack's hit roll. This is actually a decent stratagem. Number one, the reason why is that if you're taking a Gorkanaut or a Morkanaut, you are probably going to be putting it in a super heavy auxiliary. Super heavy auxiliary doesn't get the benefit of clans. But now you can just slap a big Krumpa on there and it's now you're just able to give it a little boost, which never hurts. So for that reason, Big Krumpas is useful. Also, I did some number crunching. Big Krumpas increases the amount of hits you do with Def Dreads or Mega Armor Knobs to the same level as Goths. So for example, let me just pull up my numbers here. So a regular Mega Knob squad will, let's say you have 7 of them, okay? I just picked 7 because that's the same amount of points as having 3 Def Dreads. So 7 Mega Knobs, that's 21 attacks. On average, they're landing 10.5 attacks. That's just regular Mega Knobs, okay? With Goth Mega Knobs, they're landing the same amount of attacks, but with the Goths exploding 6s, now you're getting 3.5 to an increase to 14 hits. Big Krumpas, interestingly enough, increasing the attack by +1, you're actually getting a similar effect. So now you're going from 10.5 to also 14. So you get the same number of attacks as a Goth Mega Knobs. One thing to keep in mind though is that this will mean that your Mega Knobs will not benefit from your Warlord's +1 unless your Warlord is also a big Krumpa, because that aura only, the Warlord's +1 to hit in melee combat only works on its own clan culture. Now another interesting note is that it works the exact same for Def Dreads. Def Dreads, a regular squad of 3 Def Dreads, if you're running all claws on them, they have 21 attacks. Regular Def Dreads on average are going to land 14 hits. If you have Goth Def Dreads with that exploding 6s, they're going to land 17.5 hits. If you have big Krumpa Def Dreads, they're also landing 17.5 hits. So that's some interesting numbers there. So big Krumpaz I think will definitely see play in certain lists. So for that reason, I would give big Krumpaz a B plus. I would give it an A plus if I was rating things on the names. Faux show. Keep in mind though that while Big Krumpaz gives you the same amount of hits as a Goth clan culture, it's not the same because remember that Goths also get +1 to strength when they charge. So that is something that may come into play in your game. Next up we got Madboyz. So Madboyz, bikers, cavalry characters, or mob units. So mobs is boys, burner boys, mega knobs, commandos, tank busters. Seems like everything, oh, even just regular knobs have the mob keyword. So you can make the Madboyz. So Madboyz, at the start of each battle round, roll 1d3, consult the table. Number 1, they can get rash. So when they pile in, they move 6 inches instead of 3. Number 2, they get inspired. When they shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit or 1 wound roll. And number 3, Frenzied. Each time a Mad Boy model makes a melee attack, you add 1 to the strength characteristic of that attack. Alright, so one thing to note here is that number 2 and 3, Inspired and Frenzy, are kind of similar to number 2 being similar to Death Skulls, minus the Mortal Wound, Feel No Pain, and number 3, Frenzied being similar to Goths, instead that this works all the time instead of having just charge. Now, I think that this is not a bad specialism and when you're considering each of the different options that you could get, but the number one, the fact that it is random, it kind of hurts. Cuz if you just roll rash a bunch of times and you don't have to charge, then it's kind of a waste. Essentially all of these three really only benefit from you being within some kind of combat situation, and also the fact that it's random also makes it pretty hard to use, especially in competitive play where randomness is typically seen as nothing too desirable. So for that reason, I'm gonna give this a D plus. My personal opinion is that it is not a very competitive specialist mob, especially given the other mobs that you can take over this one. Alright, next up we got Sneaky Gitz. So on boys, commandos, knobs, or war bosses, Sneaky Gitz, each time a Sneaky Git model makes a melee attack, if you are receiving the if the target is receiving the benefit of cover, improve the armor penetration characteristic by 1. This is interesting because now commandos at a squad of 10, I believe, could take a distraction grot. So you can essentially have commandos that are 4 plus if they're in cover. Now they have minus 2 AP with just choppas, and they also are getting +1 to the wound roll because they got throat slitters. That's kind of interesting. So if you're running some kind of big blob of commandos, I think you definitely do want to take this. Now, whether commandos are most efficient in big blobs or as small MSU minimum size units and just going around for objectives is still being, I think, playtested. I think still too early to say. But just given my theory crafting perspective on this, I would give this a B plus. I think this is actually a decent specialist mob to use on a if you're running a big squad of commandos, and I think that just theory crafting, I don't think that a big mob of commandos is out of the realm of possibility, given that commandos are actually pretty strong and only 1 point cheaper than boys. So this is an interesting one that we're gonna have to look into as the meta develops. All right, next up, Trukk Boyz. So boys, knobs, or war boss units only. They gain the Trukk Boy keyword, and they get to just do everything that any orc player would want them to do, which is that they can disembark. So a Trukk Boy unit can disembark from a truck even if that truck has made a more normal move this phase. So while any Trukk Boys are also in the truck, anytime that truck shoots a range attack, add 1 to that attack's hit roll. So wow, Trukk Boyz is insane. It gives you a lot of threat to either a squad of knobs, a squad of boys, or even your war boss. I mean, a Trukk Boy war boss in mega armor, you could really get that thing up there in combat, and it could hold the objective, and it's pretty hard to kill. Or even a regular war boss with the power claw and brutal but cunning, hooey, that can definitely do some punching for sure. So Trukk Boyz is definitely one to look at. Because I think that a lot of people are going to be running Trukk Boyz. I think people are actually going to be running multiple detachments so that they could have multiple Trukk Boyz. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. So, doing some math hammer on this, you got 10 inch of movement from the truck. You can disembark for an extra 3, so that's 18. Then you can move an extra 5, so that's 8, 15, sorry, 10. So that's 18 inches, yeah, 18 inches plus charge. You've got an average threat range of 25 inches. That is pretty crazy. All right, so that's even not even including advancing. It would actually be 30.5 with advancing. So you can essentially get those turn 1 charges off now with Trukk Boyz. Now, especially in ninth edition with movement being such a big part of the game, Trukk Boyz is A+. Trukk Boyz is the reason that all the specialist mobs are ranked the way that they are. If there was no Trukk Boyz, then all the other specialist mobs would actually go up a point. That being said, this is still early in the meta, so we will see, because this is pure theory crafting, if Trukk Boyz is going to be a very potent player in the meta. Moving onward to Orrible Gitz. So Orrible Gitz, Gretchens only, so Gretchens, they gain the following. So Orrible Gitz gain objective secured. Also, while any other unit except the run herd is within 3 inches of that Orrible Gitz unit, when that model makes a range attack, you subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. Interesting specialist mob. I would give this a B plus because now this is the only way to give Gretchens a OPSEC, which they used to have, but GW sadly removed from our little boys. And what I think is interesting is the fact that any unit within 3 inches of it minuses 1 from the attack's hit roll when it makes a ranged attack. So this makes me think, do you play these on, I guess you put them on a big squad of forward Gretchen. I mean, you could still put this on like a 10-man Gretchen, hold the back line. But this is a B plus because I think if you're gonna run the odd Gretchen here and there, and you're not taking Trukk Boyz or the other specialist mobs, then you just slap it on the Gretchen to give it OPSEC. I think it's a pretty standard way to give Gretchen OPSEC, and OPSEC is very important in the current edition. I think the -1 range when you're within 3 inches of it is interesting. I think that may actually, I think people will actually think of some fun ways to use that, but that could be me just being super hopeful because I love Gretchen. Who knows? That's it for the video, everybody. If you have any thoughts or suggestions on what you would rank these, or if you have something that I missed, definitely put it in the description down below. Or sorry, not the description. Put it down in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for all the subs. Really appreciate all that. Thanks for all the likes as well. We're going to be continuing down the rabbit hole of the 9th edition Ork Codex. As always, you should always play the minis and play the lists that you want to play and that are fun for you, as the meta is never stagnant. It's always changing, and only by trying new things outside of the meta can we see what can work and what cannot work. So I always encourage people to do things outside of the box. That's the only way that we get advancements in any field. So appreciate all you guys watching. As always, keep those dice rolling, and y'all stay safe out there.